even though yesterday we're going to come in here and it feels like the Niners blew them out, and they did, but they were trailing at half. Let's not forget the Jalen Ramsey dropped interception. Let's not forget the Tyler Higbee. If he catches that ball on third down, he might go all the way. He's going a long way for sure. He's going into 49er territory, and the Rams are probably set up to make that a one-score football game. So even that, it's so razor thin in the NFL. And it feels like often when we come in here, and I think Jimmy's going to end up getting a lot of praise today, and he should, but also sometimes I feel like what determines whether or not we're okay with Jimmy on a Monday morning is whether or not the other team dropped the interceptions that he threw.
That's a lot of it, yeah.
Right? I mean, that's all it is.
And they dropped the interception he threw yesterday.
What are we saying about Jimmy today if Jalen Ramsey doesn't drop that ball?
Well, if they still win the game, we're saying, well, it's what Jimmy does. It's the standard Jimmy, one mistake, one big mistake, and that was a tough interception to make, but to your point, if he catches that, maybe he takes it all the way back to the house, and we are saying different things about Jimmy Garoppolo. And what are we saying about Christian McCaffrey if he fumbles twice in that game? And, because he did basically fumble twice. One was called an incomplete pass, which was an overturn. The other one was a fumble that luckily went right to Ray lying on the ground, prone on his back. So that's the nature of football. You're right about this year's NFL. It feels even more razor thin than ever before. And even inside that game yesterday, couple of things go a couple of different ways, and that game could be totally different.
The other side to it, though, is, and this is where I think that Jimmy was different yesterday. And maybe it is the presence of Christian. He is such the ultimate check down. He's the ultimate safety valve. And by the way, once upon a time or someday, we may well be having a conversation about how awesome it is to have Christian McCaffrey there as a safety valve for Trey Lance as he becomes a player in the NFL, if that's how this all plays out next year. But just for yesterday, you know what I noticed that was different about Jimmy is when he wasn't throwing to Christian. My gosh, he was so on point in so many spots where he often isn't. When you get Dwelly take off down the left sideline, how often does Jimmy either not see it or miss the throw? Kittle down the seam.
Yeah.
He hit those throws this time. There was the red zone play where, first option not there. Second option not there. I'm going to roll left. I'm going to throw over the outstretched arm of a defender and hit Kittle perfectly in the back of the end zone. These are the things that you want your quarterback to be able to do, and Jimmy, at best, through the years, has only done them in spots. Man, he did them in droves yesterday.
Yeah, 21 of 25, and one of the incompletes was the Jalen Ramsey pick that didn't actually happen, but other than that, he was just so accurate, so effective. Give the offensive line credit. He did get sacked 3 times, but otherwise he had a ton of time on the Christian McCaffrey touchdown catch. That was a play that the offensive line gave Jimmy G 4, maybe 5 seconds to look for the third, the fourth option. And Christian McCaffrey wasn't even an option on that play until he decided to become a part of the passing option, and that's when he found him. But Jimmy Garoppolo gets a ton of credit for the way he played, and I also look at the defense and the adjustments they made in the second half, because early on it looked like it was going to be another bad day at the office for that defense. The Rams marching down the field twice in the first half. It seemed like D'Amico had no answer for Cooper Kupp, and then you go in the locker room 12 minutes later and you came out and you shut the Rams completely down in the second half.
I saw a whole lot of stuff on social media in the first half that was like, well, I guess D'Amico Ryans is going to be here as the defensive coordinator for the 49ers next year, because that's about that for the idea of him getting a head coaching job, because Atlanta ran up and down the field on him. The Chiefs made a complete joke out of the 49ers, and it looked like the Rams were going to do that in the first half. And then, Dibs, they never scored again. They never scored again. And to me, the mark of a good coach, the mark especially of a good defensive coordinator, and it's what sometimes we hang around Kyle Shanahan's head because of the lack of success in the second half when they're down. Adjustments. What have we said about Kyle Shanahan all year? Gosh, the 49ers always win the first quarter, and then they get trucked after that. Well, this was the opposite. The Rams scored first. The Rams won the first half, and then the 49ers made a halftime adjustment and absolutely dominated the football game. It was all offense and getting to over 30 points, no defensive scores. They score 4 touchdowns. They get to over 30. Yesterday was a gathering of all the things that have frustrated us about 49er football. Washed them all away. Washed them all away. Not in one game, in one half.
Right.
In one half of football.
Think about it, and Kyle Shanahan mentioned it post-game. Injury report, none. That's one of the big things that's frustrated 49er fans is they always seem to have a bunch of guys hurt. Jimmy Garoppolo can't really light up a defense. That's off the table. 21 of 25, as you mentioned. The offense, 4 touchdowns. The defense came back and was nasty after the break. And you said that. The adjustments, Kyle Shanahan, D'Amico Ryans, both sides of the football. And even the end of the game, Allen Robinson getting in the face of Hufanga.
Yep.
And he takes the 15-yard penalty. That, to me, was a microcosm of the entire afternoon. The frustration level for the Rams, off the charts. Niners win. And by the way, that's a home game for the Niners. That crowd was 2/3 red, 1/3 blue and yellow.
It was crazy.
It is kind of crazy because, and we were even talking about this a little bit yesterday, the idea that California sports, you're going to get fans of the other team. It's just true. Like when the Steelers come to play the 49ers at Levi's, there's a lot of Steeler fans there. Like that's just part of the West Coast. It's because a lot of people move here. It's because a lot of people, when the weather gets cold, want to travel here. So if you're the Steelers, if you're the Eagles, if you're the Packers, and you're a fan that's kind of like a 49er fan, and you're looking to travel to a road game, which one are you going to pick? You're going to pick when they come out west, okay? So that's part of California sports. What's wild is that for whatever reason, that particular matchup, when the Rams are hosting the 49ers, the traveling comes from inside the state. That doesn't look like that when the Rams come here. It doesn't look like that when the Rams come here. So, obviously, I know a lot of people in L.A. who have said that the whole SoFi Stadium experience has gotten a lot better, mainly for the Chargers versus the little soccer stadium they used to play in. But it's gotten better. The Rams have won a Super Bowl. The Chargers are in the building. It's gotten better. But
J.B. Long mentioned it on our show last week, talking about how in his kid's class there's more Rams jerseys than ever before.
Not that much better, though. Not in this matchup, because it's hilarious that they still keep yelling whose house, because it's obvious. It's obvious whose house it is.
Right.
It's the Niners' house.
It's Levi's South for sure. And, up here, and I think in general, the Niner fan base is probably 10 times bigger than the Rams fan base. And I don't know if that will ever change just based on the nature of Los Angeles and the way they prioritize their teams. The Rams aren't prioritized. And I wonder how many Raider fans still exist down in Los Angeles after that dud yesterday.
Man, that was, if there's one team that looked worse than anyone yesterday, the Las Vegas Raiders. What was that?
Yeah.
I think they ran 2 plays. At one point, Red Zone went there in the fourth quarter when Jarrett Stidham had come in, and there was like a turnover on downs, or so. I couldn't even figure out what had just taken place. But the Raiders had accidentally, somebody fumbled, whatever, and they get the ball on the other side of the 50. It's the fourth quarter, and the announcer goes, "This is the second play that the Raiders have run in Saints territory today." What?
Shocking.
What are you saying to me? I mean, unbelievable. Unbelievably bad performance.
That's like a Giants offense, Skip, that only has, one at-bat with runners in scoring position.
We feel that our players are better than you do, and we are wrong. Anyway, look.
Yeah, I need some Yapler every 3 or 4 minutes, so I'm going to have to keep leading you into getting, because, you look so much like him.
We'll be here as often as you ask, but just I want you to feel sure that when I'm not here as Gabe Yapler, I'm over in the corner drawing tattoos on my hands and pumping iron.
Perfect.
Because if there's one part of my costume that's not working yet, it's the fact that my forearms are not big enough.
Yeah, that's the YouTubers have been coming down your road.
Yeah, I see it.
You should have pumped iron ahead of Halloween.
I tried to get a fake tattoo as well, and life took over. But anyway, look, you dance with the date you brought.
Right.
And so here we are. But anyway, 888-957-9570. I do wonder this also. It's not just about yesterday. Through the last 5 weeks, I wonder where everyone's comfort level sits in two areas related to the quarterback. Jimmy Garoppolo is the quarterback of the 49ers this year for very different reasons than he's been the 49er quarterback before. And we don't need to go through that story, from keeping him to Trey getting hurt, here we are. And so some fans were like, this is putting on an old shoe. And other fans are like, our shoes are broken. I really didn't want to put this pair of shoes on anymore. And so that sort of angst and frustration then really came to a head when he starts his first game of the year and they lose 11-10 and he walks out of the back of the end zone. And it really set everybody ablaze about the 49er quarterback position and the mismanagement of Kyle Shanahan. And now here we are 5 weeks later and on the changeover, which I love. I mentioned the stats in this 5-week run. It's 9 TDs and 3 picks. It is a QB rating of 99 or higher in 4 of the 5 games. 2
safeties needs to be included in the stats.
Well, no, but this is since Denver, so not the Denver game.
Okay, so one safety.
One safety, completion percentage of 68%.
Yeah.
And then the biggest of the games, a road game against the Los Angeles Rams. He saves his best game for that moment. So without getting this to a spot where we're talking about the future, because I'm going to use Bob Myers' quote and really apply it to all 3 of the teams this year, okay?
We're just going to live this year.
Please try to enjoy this year. The 49er quarterback situation is going to be weird next offseason. There are so many scenarios. I have no idea what my opinion even is yet because we got to watch this play out and get all of the information.
They don't know what their opinion is yet.
They got no idea.
Based on how this ends will determine how that goes.
49ers are truly living in the moment, but your comfort level on where Jimmy currently has this team and where you think it can go. Because, by the way, if he does take it to the playoffs again, I'll just predict this. We are going to end up in an offseason conversation asking, was it smart for the 49ers in such a win mode? It's not, oh, do you love Jimmy? Do you want to keep Jimmy? Do you want to go on to Trey Lance? When your team is in a win mode, do you hand that over to a young, unproven player? I think that's the question we're going to end up getting to.
Yeah.
And it's a pretty fair one because on a day like today, it does feel like this group, now that Christian's here, a bye week, blessed with a little bit of health after that, Dibs, it feels like this team can go somewhere.
Absolutely. With Jimmy Garoppolo at quarterback.
Yes.
And it feels like with Christian McCaffrey on this team, it mitigates the need for Jimmy Garoppolo to be extraordinary. Jimmy Garoppolo can be himself because now you have more than just Deebo Samuel as a dynamic playmaker. You have Christian McCaffrey. George Kittle already is a difference-making tight end in spots. Brandon Ayuk, by the way, needs a mention as a guy who's turning into an absolute monster at wide receiver. So you look around, you've got 4 legitimate high-caliber weapons. So if your quarterback is your 6th best offensive player, that can work with McCaffrey, Kittle, Ayuk, Samuel, Trent Williams, and you start to stack all these talented players around him, and you think Jimmy Garoppolo, and he doesn't have to be as good as he was yesterday. Yesterday was a darn near perfect game. I know he threw one that could have been intercepted,
the almost pick,
another one that was tipped and almost intercepted, 2 of his incompletes, both could have been picks, and on another day, maybe they are picks. But if Jimmy Garoppolo is just good, you have enough around him to where this team can make big noise in January and maybe even February.